Welcome to A Minute to Midnight. This is Tony, and we have a guest on our show today, John Little. John has two websites, omegashop.com and ezekielfire.com. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it's great to be able to talk to someone on our side of the Pacific for once in a while.
Yes, but you've still got that American accent, which I don't have.
Right, exactly. Of course, there aren't too many of us Americans here living in Taipei, but there's a few of us running around, and I must tell you that I really love Taipei and Taiwan.
Aha.
Being married to the most beautiful woman in the world who is from this area, I am happy to be here.
Great. I mean, you with your websites, you cover an awful lot of different topics, which is brilliant because I go there regularly and find lots of fascinating information. But I believe tonight, John, you primarily want to talk about the subject of Ezekiel's fire. Can you explain to the listeners what that exactly is?
Sure, exactly. I mean, this was about a year and a half ago, late 2014. As I was reading through my Bible, and I try to do that on a yearly basis. My favorite Bible reading uses the one-year Bible. In fact, I recommend to everybody, if they can read through their Bible once a year through the one-year Bible, you will be immeasurably blessed. So as I was reading through the Bible, and every year I would go through and I'd hit that verse where it talks about when Gog and Magog comes down in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and God speaks of fire that will rain down upon Gog and Magog, or more specifically, the land of Magog. And I'm thinking, what is that fire? And I would kind of pass it off like, okay, fine. And I just move on.
Yeah.
As so many times that we do when we're not really sure what all this is. And so I just, okay, fine. And then I hit Isaiah 30 and I go, whoa, wait a second. Whoa. Because Isaiah 30 talks about the sun becoming as bright as 7 days and the moon as bright as the sun. And I thought, well, wait a second. This is it, because the events of that, both Isaiah 30 and Ezekiel 38 and 39, they're both talking about the same moment in time. And all the things that happened, the earthquakes and all of that. And then, wait a second, there's also Zechariah. And Zechariah talks about horses that are driven blind and madness that happens. And I thought, wait a second, okay, so unless everybody is going to go back to riding horses, and if that happens, by the way, just look around you. Can you imagine a situation where we would all be forced to going back to riding horses? I don't know about you, but that's really serious.
I think if it was at that point, there'd be an awful lot of dead people first.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, no, really. I mean, it would be an incredible catastrophe one way or the other.
Yeah.
So as I'm sitting here looking at this, and I thought, well, wait a second. What if horses are a euphemism for transport?
Yeah.
Cars, trains, automobiles, things like that. I mean, here, Zechariah is speaking in terms that people could understand at that time. And so as you weave both events, Zechariah 12 and 13, Isaiah 30, and then Ezekiel 38 and 39, you start to get the understanding, wait a second, those are all connected together. Now, those of us that have been paying attention to things, and this is what I do with omegashop.com, I got all upset. In fact, I remember the day that I got all upset. And there's a reason why I'm kind of pulling us back, because it was April 5th, 2011, in which I woke up to an enormous threat that we are all facing in one way or another. Less of us over here on our side of the Pacific, but on the other side, they are much more in danger of an electromagnetic pulse attack.
Yeah.
Where a nuclear weapon is exploded over about maybe, say, 300 miles above the United States, and out there goes American civilization.
Yeah, well, I mean, like North Korea has practiced and Iran, I think, detonating something at that sort of height, 180 miles or whatever, up in the air. So why are they doing that? Certainly doesn't
That's
seem like
right.
a failed nuclear weapon. It seems like a deliberate test.
It sounds like that to me. And there are now 2 North Korean satellites that are orbiting the Earth, and there may be nuclear weapons in those satellites. So, anyways, so that's what got omegashock.com started. And so here I was up until 2014 reading through my Bible. And when Zechariah 12, I think it's Zechariah 12, when it talks about the horses becoming blind, and what happens to a horse when it is blind, it does not move. It doesn't work. It goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And so what I realized is I'm looking at what appears to be an EMP attack. But when you put in Isaiah chapter 30, where the sun becomes as bright as 7 days and the moon as bright as the sun, that's when we start to realize, wait a second, this isn't an EMP attack from man. This is an EMP attack from God using the sun. And how would it look like this solar flare? Well, what is a flare? A flare is essentially fire. So it would be the fire that rains down in Gog and Magog. And then as those 3 verses kind of hit me all at once, and I started to see the implications of all of this, I realized that 1 billion people could die.
Yeah.
Think of all the things that will stop working. The power plants that will no longer provide electricity. And of course, what are the pumps that keep our water flowing? What do they use? They use electricity.
Yeah.
There are very few places in the world where the water that comes out of our faucets is powered by gravity. There are gravity-fed places. I mean, I think I've been told that there are maybe 2%, maybe 3% of all the fresh drinkable water is gravity powered. Everything else requires an electric pump to keep the pressure going so that you can have water to drink.
Yeah.
So when that shuts off, when this solar flare hits, that is going to, I honestly believe it's going to be 1 billion people that are going to die.
Yeah. See, well, in 1859, there was that geomagnetic solar storm, which was known as the Carrington event, a kind of a white light flare recorded by a couple of English astronomers, Carrington and Hodgson, I think their names were. And an event at that time, of course, there wasn't much electricity. It was very, very new in 1859. And so it wouldn't have created a huge lot of problem back then because they weren't reliant on electricity. But if the same thing happened today, even on that scale, it would cause widespread destruction and problems and chaos. But you're sort of suggesting something much bigger than just a solar event of that size, aren't you?
Right. No, actually, the Carrington event itself. I mean, they were talking about the telegraph lines burning. I mean, this was a huge, huge deal. Yeah, there is something bigger than that's coming. And up until, in fact, when I wrote the book, I mean, the book Ezekiel's Fire is available in PDF. You can download it if you go to the website ezekielsfire.com. First of all, the book is all there. Yeah. You can download the PDF. It's all free.
Yeah.
But when I was writing this thing, and I'm continually updating it, so I'm going to be adding this new bit of information in, I had not run across the term superflare.
Yeah.
And see, we are normally used to M-class flares and X-class flares. Those terms are recognizable to us. But we've never talked about a superflare. And now the question is this: is a superflare possible? Well, the only reason why we have this term superflare is because astronomers have observed this happening in stars that are like our own.
Right.
Our sun is considered a G-class star. And G-class stars are remarkably stable stars. They don't fluctuate very much. Our sun has fluctuated between zero point 0.1 and 0.2% on a year-to-year basis. We go through even solar maximums and solar minimums. There isn't very much in the way of variation. But when it comes to a superflare, and yes, our sun could give us a superflare, it will destroy a large part of technical civilization. And the interesting question is, what part of the Earth will be the most affected? And I'm hoping that you and I are in a very good place, that we don't have to worry so much about it, but I'm not completely certain.
Why would you think we would be?
Well, the interesting thing is this. First of all, and this is where we bring in, and maybe I should bring in, what is the timing? When does this superflare happen? That superflare happens at the time of the coming of Gog and Magog.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, those of us that have spent time in the Middle East, myself included, we know that combat fighting doesn't happen in the wintertime. It only happens in the summertime because, frankly, a lot of the Middle East is impassable during the wintertime because a lot of rain happens and the area becomes muddy and impassable.
Right.
So Gog and Magog is going to come when the fields are dry, the roads are dry, everything is going to be fine for fighting.
Yeah.
So Gog and Magog is going to happen at the time in the summertime. Well, when is this? The summertime is when the northern hemisphere is pointed towards the sun, as opposed to the southern hemisphere. So it's going to be the summertime. So you, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be far safer from a solar flare such as this.
Right.
For myself, I'm a little bit on the northern hemisphere. I'm here in Taiwan.
Yeah.
The thing is this, hopefully, the biggest effect is going to be towards Europe, because it says that when the fire comes down in Gog and Magog, it hits the land of Magog and in the isles where they dwell carelessly. Now, I'm on an island.
Yeah.
Taiwan is an island.
Yeah.
We do dwell kind of carelessly. I don't know. We're not terribly worried about attack. So maybe we will be affected. I'm certainly hoping not, but it's possible.
And what about America? What about the USA?
Yeah, well, it's. You're glad you're
not there, I can hear.
I'm glad. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not there for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. Okay, because I'm Indiana born and bred. I lived in Indiana until I was about mid-20s.
Yeah.
I love the country of my birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am hoping that nothing happens to America, but there's something tells me that if America is not damaged and destroyed by this solar flare, it's going to have been damaged and destroyed before it, because there's something from a geopolitical standpoint, as someone who studied how countries fight and the power that they project into the world, for America to not attempt to stop Gog and Magog coming down and invading the Middle East, for America not to do that, that tells me that either America's power has been destroyed, or America itself has been destroyed. Now, my preference is that America's power has been destroyed, but it exists as a country, and lots of people have not died, and everything is fine.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with the way that America has been acting in terms of their foreign policy, the things that they've been doing, just provoking Russia in the way that they have, something tells me that America's power has been neutralized so effectively. Well, I'm thinking that already an EMP attack has happened on America. I mean, why? Speaking of, I was so upset when America staged that coup in Ukraine,
Yeah.
where, I mean, if I was Putin and I saw these threats to Russia's existence, where the neocons are attempting to destroy Russia,
Yeah.
uh, the first thing I'd want to do is start a plan where I would use an EMP weapon to neutralize America. I mean, that's what I would do as someone who wants to protect his own country. So there's something that tells me, in terms of just the way the world is moving, something has destroyed America. Now, that's
Right.
just a theory on my part. There's
Yeah.
nothing, I can't point to anything biblical in terms of that, but I can't, so I don't know what exactly happens to America, but there's one thing that I am completely certain of, and that's this solar flare that I would call a super flare. And those of us that are listening to this, just do a search for the word super flare, and you'll get a lot there just by itself.
Mm.
Uh, you know, people don't really understand how electricity is so important to our existence.
Yeah.
We think of the water. I mean, we've talked about fresh water, how important that is. Our civilization cannot exist without the efficient distribution of fresh water to every household.
Mm.
Just in, those of you in America that are listening to this, if you are living anywhere close to Detroit, what is one of the big problems that Detroit has right now? Fresh water. We're seeing towns where the water is so terrible that people are moving out. They can't exist in a place where there is no fresh water. You cannot live for more than 3 days without fresh water, and those 3 days would be a horrifying existence. So that alone is going to be horrendous. Now, ask yourself again. Now, Tony, you're in New Zealand, which is a wonderful place to be, that if the electricity goes out,
Yeah, we're still pretty dependent on it, though.
you're still pretty dependent, but I'm assuming that your access to fresh water, at least streams and rivers and stuff like that, is a little easier.
Yeah, it is. Yep. But
Yeah, it's like,
unless, of course, you're in a big city, like Auckland, then you'd be struggling. But for those of us that aren't in the big cities, yeah, fresh water's pretty easy to come by.
that's right. And so also here in Taiwan, if the electricity went out, we have, I mean, I'm not too far outside of my front door is a nice big river that goes by. It's not the cleanest river in the world, but I'm not going to die in 3 days.
Yeah.
For a large part of America, that is not the case. The same is the case, same with Europe and Russia and the Middle East and all of these places. Water is a difficult commodity to get to. It takes a great deal of infrastructure and electrical infrastructure for water to get to us.
Yeah.
And then we start talking about food distribution.
Yeah.
I mean, we in America, they talk about the 1,000-mile salad, where the food that America gets comes from all of those flyover states, sort of like Indiana or California, where trucks are moving food back and forth and we have just-in-time delivery. Well, if an EMP attack goes off, where does the food come from if the trucks can't run?
Yeah, exactly, because people may not realize that, anything after about a 1980s vehicle has computer chips in that would be fried by an EMP attack. So that those vehicles would be useless. Of course, then you got the pumping stations and all that, that pump gas and everything. But yeah, that'd be inoperable too. So
that's right. And so this is why when I talk to people about things that are coming, I tell them, look, guys, please get some extra food.
Yeah.
Have secure access of water.
Yeah.
And your point about the cities is an exceptional one. In fact, the thing that I am most concerned about is the cities are going to collapse in upon themselves. They're going to be death traps.
Yeah.
If you are within 150 miles of a city. It's about a 3 days walk
Mm.
for a healthy person. If you're within 150 miles of a city, you could be in a lot of trouble because the people in the cities are going to go in search of food and water.
That's a
And they
point.
will take what you have and take your life along with it.
True, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Hadn't really thought of it being that far. You sort of think, oh, well, maybe 20 miles or something. But no, you're right. That's possible, that it could be a lot further than that. Yeah. And your website sort of says that there are basically 6 prophets in the Bible that spoke of this possible giant solar flare that you mentioned. Well, there's Isaiah and Zechariah and Ezekiel and Jeremiah. We've also got Micah and Zephaniah as well. So you must have done a bit of work to discover it in all of those different
Yeah, I did.
books.
Well, it's when you're talking about something as bizarre sounding as what I'm talking about. I mean, here I am. I'm saying that the Bible speaks of a solar flare that is going to do enormous damage to our civilization and kill 1 billion people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you've got someone like me saying that, and I understand how crazy this sounds, and I'm sitting here going like, wait a second,
It
would I
maybe
even believe?
sounded crazy, a year or two ago, but I think there's been enough talk, certainly in alternative media circles and even a bit in the mainstream media, about solar flares and the damage they could do in EMP attacks. It maybe doesn't sound so crazy anymore.
No, it doesn't, and I am pleasantly surprised to see all of this being talked about, and as well as as we see events in the Middle East. I mean, I've been tracking what's been going on in Syria and what's been going on in Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
As we see those events heating up, and as we see the political forces move towards this coming of Gog and Magog, and by the way, let me lay out something carefully for people. There are 2 comings of Gog and Magog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are a little confused by this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you read the areas where they talk about the coming of Gog and Magog, you will notice that they are 2 separate events. There's the Gog and Magog that is after the millennium in the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
That is at the end of the world before God, redoes the universe and there's a new heaven and a new earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that Gog and Magog. This Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39, that Gog and Magog is not just before the end of the universe.
Yeah.
It is not just before the end of the world. It is before the tribulation.
Yeah.
This is a completely separate event. And so please don't get, and I know it's interesting, when you go over, when you read the Bible, you see a strange word like Magog. I mean, no, and you're like, well, wait a second. That's such a bizarre word. It must be connected to that same word in the book of Revelation. It's not. Anyway, so the point is this. We need to be, we are looking for these events coming together. And I believe, and this is the other part of all this, how quickly this is coming.
Yeah.
I believe that Gog and Magog could be coming within 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as I'm looking at this carefully, now it could be longer, it could be even shorter. I doubt that it will be next year, but there's a very high chance that it could be in 2018.
Right.
And then after 2018, I mean, the chance of Gog and Magog coming escalates further and further. And the reason why I say that is that, remember, most of those of us that are listening to our conversation here, we know that we live in the last days.
Yeah.
This is something that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13. And he spoke of it as a span of time that is a generation long. And when Jesus gave the list of events that were going to happen within this generation, the span of a generation, one of those events was the capture of Jerusalem by the non-Gentiles. Now, he used that term very carefully to emphasize that it's not Gentile controlled anymore, Jerusalem.
Right.
And I can tell you, having been a resident of Jerusalem and the Jerusalem area for 15 years, the old city of Jerusalem is under complete and utter control. So from that moment in time, it's like a clock started ticking.
Yeah.
And it's a generation clock. And we are very close to the end of that generation clock.
So
Because
did it start in 1948 or 1967? What do you think?
1967.
Okay.
Because it's an interesting thing, because Jesus spoke of the city itself.
Yeah.
Because the disciples came to him and said, "Oh, look at how wonderful and everything all this is." And Jesus says, "Look, the whole city is going to be destroyed. Not one stone is going to be left upon another. And it will be controlled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is over."
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yep. I agree.
And actually, it's a fascinating, it's just a fascinating story. As someone who's a writer and looking at the Middle East and everything that's there, I run the risk of diverting our attention to the Middle East because it's such a fascinating story for me. But so everything that has to happen that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, that must all occur because Jesus spoke of his return at the end. So we've got a lot of things that are supposed to happen between now and then, and there's not much time left.
No.
And as I see the United States and NATO pushing Russia, now we're assuming, we've got a couple different theories as to who Gog is. Either way, if it's Russia or Turkey, and as I tell everybody who wants to talk about Gog and Magog, remember the number one identifier of Gog
is alignment with Iran, isn't it?
It's Iran, exactly.
Yeah.
If you do not see an alliance between the one person that you think might be Gog and Iran, well, it's not Gog until that alliance happens.
Yeah.
The point is this: Russia is being pushed.
Yeah.
If America is destroyed and leaves a power vacuum in the Middle East, it'll draw Russia down into it. If it is, if it's Turkey, then, it's the, if Turkey is under threat and it is forced to come down and attack, whatever it is, these forces are moving. Yeah. We're sitting at a pivotal moment in history where forces are moving to capture the Middle East, especially this. And this is something else just to add into all of this. And I know that I'm throwing just a ton of things out. We are now seeing the decline, or we're just now, about this year, we're starting to see the decline of the conventional production of oil.
Yes, yeah.
And this is it's a mind-blowing aspect of our current civilization. We do not, for every calorie of food that you consume, you are consuming 9 calories of petroleum. Our food production depends upon oil to such a massive extent. I am not certain how many people on this planet we can support without the level of oil production that we have right now. It's in the process of declining. So these factors, as we see the decline of oil production, as we see the stresses that are happening in the Caucasus regions and Northern Europe and Russia and all of those areas, as they coalesce to the single moment in time that will bring us Gog and Magog, well, then along comes this horrendous superflare that will, I suspect it'll at least knock civilization back. It'll take some time to recover.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, many, many, many people will die.
Yeah. So I kind of, there's a couple of things, I've sort of often thought that the Gog Magog war could be the thing that kicks off at the beginning of the Great Tribulation. I sort of hold the opinion that, to me, the most likely candidate for Mystery Babylon actually appears to be America. Now, whether the Book of Revelation is chronological order, that's something I'm not too sure on. And so it's like fitting the whole picture together, but it's also, the Book of Revelation doesn't really tell us how long the Book of Revelation is. All we know is once the Antichrist comes to power, he has 3.5 years. But we don't really, to me, I can't think we can say, right, the Book of Revelation is a 7-year book or whatever it's like. It could be stretched out longer than that. So that's my thoughts on it anyway.
No, I believe me, I have, I've had a lot of discussions over this with a lot of different people, and there's just an enormous, it's a very confusing book, because I think part of the problem is the events that will happen between now and then are going to be so confusing and difficult that it's hard for us to see. We have to get through the next few years for us to really see the events of Revelation more clearly.
Yeah.
Now, there is one thing that I would like to add in all of this in terms of the book of Revelation. Because remember in, I think it's Revelation chapter 12, when it talks about the woman with the crown of 12 stars. For that, I interpret that woman to be physical Israel. Remember, she's the woman that gave birth to the Messiah, to the baby that was caught up into heaven. So this physical Israel, as I interpret things, that physical Israel that goes into the desert and is protected for a time, times, and a half a time. There at least must be a certain amount of time for that physical Israel to gain a certain amount of spiritual maturity, because right now, Israel is not saved. They have not accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
And even those who wanted to claim that Judaism is accepted by God, which I disagree, 75% of Israel is atheist.
Yeah.
There is, and of the rest, really a very tiny percentage of Israelis really even believes in Judaism as it is described in the Talmud and the Mishnah and the Tanakh. So the point is this: there must be a revolutionary change to Israel before the tribulation can happen, so that she can be that woman that goes into the desert. And I believe that as you look at Isaiah 30 and Zechariah 12 and 13 and Ezekiel 38 and 39 and the other prophets, we're talking about that revolutionary change right now. So yes, I do believe that Gog and Magog happens before the tribulation, but it is at least a few years. How many years, of course, is up to debate. But it has to be enough years so that the world recovers.
Right.
And here's this other thought, and this is an interesting thing, as I've sort of thought about the coming of the Antichrist.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
What would give the Antichrist the opportunity to gather power? But when you have a crisis like this, and he rises up, and he's the person that helps organize things together, and he kind of brings the society back together, and he helps bring people back. But as he goes through the process of bringing society and civilization back, he exerts his own control and says, you cannot be a part of our civilization. You cannot be rescued unless you take the mark of the beast, unless you have his image or be a part of his system.
Right.
And yeah, I hear these stories of underground depots and underground. Yeah, I don't know what to make of all of this. I mean, I try to take a very cynical view of events because I know there's a lot of static in the signal that we're getting about what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of confusing stuff. And some of it's deliberate disinformation too, I believe.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Just a lot of things are happening. So I'm like, well, I don't know for sure. I do know the Bible is true. I do know the Bible is true. And there's this thing, and this is where, when people talk about America being Mystery Babylon, and this is where I get, because there's two theories about Mystery Babylon, and I sometimes will bounce back and forth, but there is this that talks about the beast with one of the heads with the deadly wound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it an EMP attack that the beast recovers from? Is it this massive superflare that we're talking about? Is that the deadly wound that this beast recovers from?
See,
All of those
I have
things.
a theory that, well, I'm actually, but kind of an idea that whatever it is, the solar flare or the Planet X event or whatever it is that knocks out things, and that people maybe say are without electricity and that for a period of time, and I don't know exactly how long that is, and so your televisions and computers and all that don't work, and then one day, bam, it's back. And that at that point that you have the New World Order and the Antichrist assuming power, and really taking the system from there on.
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of how I see things.
Good.
Now, again, I'm just one guy, speaking from Taipei, and who knows what the truth is. But I can imagine sitting there and, nothing works.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to survive.
Yeah.
And along comes, technology and it coming back, and you go like, whoa, I want that.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a great deal of self-control to say, no, I will not take the mark. I will not participate in whatever that is.
Yeah.
So
it could be, the whole, I don't know if you've followed L.A. Marzulli at all, and with the, and people like that with the genetic changing chips as a possibility, that a microchip that's more than just an identification microchip, but it actually changes a person's DNA and gives you the promise of eternal life.
L.A. Marzulli is fantastic. Again, I'm very cynical about all kinds of things like the Book of Enoch and all that kind of stuff. But when he pointed out, he was the one that kind of directed my attention. I mean, I've never spoken to him, but I mean, in terms of his videos and his podcast. But when I saw those Paracas skulls and how they have 25% more brain volume and the shape and the number of teeth and everything, those are not humans as we know them to be. And I thought, wait a second, there's truth to that.
Yeah.
So there is, what was it? One of my favorite quotes from Hamlet is, there is more in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are explained in your philosophy. And yes, but the one thing that I have to keep reminding myself, and I was just reading in my Bible a few days ago, the secret things belong to God. And so I accept that. But so when we see some of this evidence, we go like, well, yeah, that's another thing to be afraid of. I do not want something stuck in my body that could possibly mess with who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does say in the book of Revelation that men will seek death and not be able to find it, which could be case if you had something like that was constantly regenerating your DNA or something along those lines. But, I mean, it's a little bit speculative, but it's certainly, there's a lot of useful information out there and a lot of thought-provoking stuff. But I guess, we can't really be sure on that. But if we're talking about the solar flare possibility, the super flare and Ezekiel's fire, it's all very well to kind of go, well, this is what's going to happen. So how about, what do you actually suggest that people do, with this information?
Well, I always there's an order of preparation that I always talk about. First of all, get close to God. Read your Bible every day. Read the whole thing at least once. Read your Bible every day. Get close to God. Follow. Be careful. You know, as I say to everybody, life is short. Eternity is long. Choose well. That's my saying. So that's number one. Number two, get to a secure place. If you are close to a city, if you are required to be close to a city, have a plan to get away from a city if such a thing happens. And make sure that you are with a community of people. I don't care how much food and water you have. I don't care how much ammunition and guns and whatever you have. You cannot do this on your own. Anybody and everybody that has been through a collapse situation like this has survived because of community. Have a community of people that are like-minded, that you will support each other. You will not be able to support any other way. And for those of you that don't really feel like you've got the money to really make those preparations, you can reach out to people right now. Get out, communicate with other people that have the same like mind. You can reach out to them on the internet. Get together. You can survive if you have people together that are with you and will support each other. Okay, that's number two. Number three, once you've done all that, okay, water and food. If you can get to a place and be in a place where there is surface water that's running on the surface, and you get water filters, and you have some extra food or access to food on an ongoing basis. We're living here, I'm living here in Taiwan, and this is a lush environment where food grows quickly. So I am less concerned about food here in Taiwan. But there are areas in the United States where food is harder to get. So be prepared for the possibility of not having power for several months, maybe even years. I don't know. After that, then if you've done all that preparation, and by the way, when you're preparing, you prepare for more than just yourself. If you are bought and paid for by the blood of Christ, you have an obligation to help those around you. You are to be an example of Christ to the rest of the world, and that means preparing for more than just yourself. After all of that, after you've done all that, I'm an ex-financial guy. In the 90s, I managed a tiny mutual fund. I was an investment advisor. I did all of that. I have one of those MBA type things. So I understand all the financial stuff that's happening right now, and I'm completely horrified, by the way. The only thing that I know of right now that will hold its value in a collapse situation is gold and silver.
Absolutely agree. Yes. Yep.
It is portable.
Yep.
By the way, I do not believe in diamonds because I believe that Russia is sitting on a mountain of diamonds. There's indication that there are more diamonds out there than we realize. But gold and silver will fit in your pocket, and you can carry it with you if you have to run. And you always must have a plan B, and running may be one of those plan Bs.
Yeah.
So gold and silver. Now, if you have land, in basically, look, all of your preparations may include, use up all of your money anyway. But if you have to run, have enough physical gold and silver in your pocket that you can exchange for what you need. And gold is a universally recognized and acceptable item of value.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend that. But of course, then again, look, take everything that we talk about to the Lord. This is, God gives equally through his Holy Spirit inspiration to all of us. So as you do the hard work of seeking the Lord and connecting with God, then God will guide you. If my words help, that's fantastic. If someone else helps, whatever it is, but follow the Lord first. Nothing is more important than that. I mean, look, if you mess up in all your preparation, if you die in what happens, the fact that you are connected with the Lord and you have accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, there is nothing else that matters.
Yep, I agree. Yep, we've got maybe a couple of minutes and then we'll have to wrap up. But my whole journey, or Chris and our whole journey towards a minute to midnight really came with God telling us both, well, Chris before me, but to prepare by looking at precious metals and storing food. And I knew nothing about gold or silver, and I'm to be honest, I don't have money to. Gold's out of my reach,
Right.
well and truly out of my reach. But a little bit of silver accumulations at the moment. Silver's been cheap enough. I think that's about to change, but
Yep.
I think it's actually going to change really soon. And storing food. I mean, just a little bit at a time, and yeah, even with what you were saying about preparing for other people, just buy an extra bag of rice, little 1 kilo bag of rice, and stick it aside and go, that one is for giving away. Or another
Yeah.
can of beans. That can of beans is a giveaway can of beans. That's the way I've looked at it. Because
And I agree.
we're not islands. We don't want to be. I don't believe in locking ourselves up in a fort with machine guns and we're going to
Right.
keep the world out. That's not what a Christian does. We're there to
That's
help others and give and be generous. Well, that's been really awesome, John. Have you just got a few thoughts you want to close with, and then we should look at wrapping up?
Well, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter on omegashock.com. I send something out once a week, and it's kind of a compendium of kind of the research I do on a weekly basis. And read the book, ezekielsfire.com. There's a PDF available. It's free. And believe me, it's a labor of love. And my hope and desire is that all who hear our voices today will be safe and secure in the days to come.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I'll put, if anyone's looking at the actual video, I'll put the websites, both of your websites in there so people can actually read it at omegashock.com and ezekielsfire.com. So, well, thanks heaps for coming on today, John, and I'd definitely love to get you on again soon. There's plenty of other subjects we could touch on as well.
Absolutely. Be my pleasure. Be my pleasure indeed.
All right, thanks, John. Until next time, we'll have a great week.
You too. Thank you.
So thanks everyone for listening to A Minute to Midnight today. Please be sure to visit our aminutomidnight.com website and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And right now, Brooke is making a group Facebook page for A Minute to Midnight as well. So we'll let you know in the next broadcast more about that. And also remember, I write and record all the music for aminutomidnight.com. So if you can support rockshawsounds.com as well, you're helping to support A Minute to Midnight. So until next time, this is Tony signing off.